What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Monday Night Quarterback right here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We are Alabama's rival site. That is Tony Tsoukalas. He is our beat writer. And I'm Mick Gillispie, and it is a pleasure to have all of you guys hanging out with us tonight and always here on the site. Like and subscribe as you hang out on a Monday night. Give us a thumbs up. That's a great way of saying roll tide. And again, we appreciate you guys being here more than you know. It's always our pleasure to talk Alabama sports with you as we roll through this season. It's only 2 more regular season games left, but after everything that happened, Tony, I'm going to say that Alabama's going to play in the SEC championship game. Rat poison, they're right on the cusp.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, if they win one more, they're in, right? So I think that they're in good shape. Should be Alabama versus Georgia. I know we'll get into that, but Alabama's in, and that's what happens when you handle business. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't always been pretty. It was pretty last week, but they played New Mexico State. But when you handle business, things take care of themselves, and Alabama's in pretty good shape moving forward.
Let me talk about business, right? That business right there. Westgate Luxury Condominiums. This show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. That's where we do the post-game show every Saturday home game from the Sky Club right there at Westgate. And it is really a fantastic place. Everyone treats us so well. Julian and her crew are awesome. You're talking about just steps away from Bryant-Denny Stadium, the Skygate Club for you and your friends, including game day treatment, catered game days, unparalleled service. And when I say unparalleled, I really mean it. It is awesome. Luxury condos with high-end finishes, appliances, and more. WestgateAL.com or call 855-287-1318 if you need more information. You can earn rental income, on-site hospitality team that handles owner and guest requests of all kind, access to world-class housekeeping and maintenance crews, website and digital marketing services for your residency to maximize revenue and distribution, right? And what I really love the most about these places are the places themselves. 1 to 5 bedroom condominiums that range from 900 to 3,000 square feet. And they're starting at $900 and or $490,000 and more. They're awesome. They really are awesome. It's an investment. The spot's great. The parking's great. The people are great. Find out for yourself. WestgateAL.com, and they bring us Monday Night Quarterback. All right, let's get into Monday Night Quarterback. Alabama thumped New Mexico State. We knew they would. Unfortunately for the Crimson Tide, Tony, some big injuries, and you start right off the bat with Roydell Williams, who is going to have knee surgery. I'm guessing he's out for the year. So he joins Jace McClellan, a big loss, Kamar Wheaton, who got injured in practice. Alabama's thin in that running back spot.
Man, at the beginning of the season, if you would have told me that Alabama was going to be thin at running back, I wouldn't have believed you, because I felt like, there was no way they were going to get to this point. But, 3 injuries at one position will do that to you. And now Alabama's left with 2 running backs, or 2 scholarship running backs, and then 2 more makeshift running backs as they've moved Christian Leary to running back, a freshman wide receiver, and then sophomore linebacker Demoy Kennedy to running back as well. So you've got Christian Leary's kind of the speed back of those 2. And then Demoy Kennedy, of course, being a linebacker, is going to be the power guy of those 2. That being said, I do think that the bulk of the carries will go to Brian Robinson and Trey Sanders. And fortunately for Alabama, that those 2 have been doing pretty well. Trey Sanders had 66 yards and 12 carries. He also had a touchdown against New Mexico State. He's been waiting for his opportunity, and he'll certainly get it. It's kind of ironic because he's going to get his biggest opportunity following, a pair of injuries, and he himself was coming off of 2 season-ending injuries. So it's just kind of how those things work out. Alabama really can't afford, though, to have any more injuries at that position. They're already at bare bones.
Yeah, I mean, and it really hurts because, look, I mean, Brian Robinson's done an excellent job of filling in this year. But I don't feel like Alabama's been the same team. And this is just my opinion, Tony. I don't think they've been the same offense without McClellan. And now they don't have Roydell Williams, who I don't feel like we really saw a whole lot of. Here is a graphic with our running back room right now. We got Brian Robinson Jr., right, who's a 6-year guy who only gets to come back because of COVID. It feels like he's been playing college football forever. You got Trey Sanders, who had an injury, then was in a car accident. We haven't seen a lot of him. Christian Leary was a top receiver commitment and recruit and on the bench for Alabama. We saw a little bit of him. But how about Damari Kennedy? This guy was a linebacker.
Damari Kennedy, though, he's wearing that 37, so kind of got that Sean Alexander vibe going. So maybe that will help him with the ball as well. Look, I'm going to probably have a story on both of those guys at the end of the week. Damari Kennedy did a lot of running back at his high school down in Mobile, and Christian Leary in Orlando. He also did some wildcat kind of stuff, some running backs. He was kind of a do-it-all kind of guy for his offense. So both of these guys, they have offensive experience, not necessarily what Alabama would be hoping for at this point of the season, but these are guys that can make plays. And like Nick Saban said, Damari Kennedy is kind of that power guy, can probably get you some short yardage stuff. And, look, Christian Leary is a speedster wide receiver, so he could maybe create some mismatch problems in the passing game out of the backfield. So it would be interesting to see kind of how they use those two guys.
Yeah, for everyone down here in L.A., Lower Alabama, they're all excited about Kennedy. From Theodore, anytime you go out on Brick and McKenzie's boat, you float down and you can see Theodore from the Mobile Bay. So yeah, like I get it. But here's the issue: is that Alabama had all of these top-notch recruited running backs, and now they're going to have to try to figure out a way to utilize some of the talent at other positions. But I guess the guy that we don't even have listed here that I'm wondering about, and I got to tell you, Kyle Henderson brought this up last night and brings up a great point. What about Jalen Milroe? Maybe he's a guy that Alabama could let run the ball. He's as fast as any player on the team. He's the third-string quarterback. But at this point, you got to figure with 3 games left, 2 games, SEC championship game, and an opportunity to win the league again and go to the national championship playoffs. It's got to be all hands on deck, right?
Maybe.
Wrong.
I could see, I could see that. I could see where Alabama fans want that to happen, but you're kind of sacrificing the future for the now, especially when it comes to, how often is Damari Kennedy really going to get meaningful carries moving on? He's there for an insurance at the moment, but I think Alabama really just gives Brian Robinson a bigger workload and then also Trey Sanders a bigger workload. I don't think they're going to go. They might use those other two on occasion, but I don't think that they're going to be like a main staple in the offense. I think moving Milroe into that role is going to stunt his development as a quarterback. I think he's got a really bright future there. The other thing you got to look for is what if Bryce Young gets hurt, and you have already moved Jalen Milroe to quarterback. Jalen Milroe is a guy that I think could seriously compete with Paul Tyson for that starting job. If Bryce Young was to go down. If you already have him moved to, running back, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, or I don't know how that saying goes. I kind of messed that up. But
I hear you though.
Is like you still need that depth at quarterback. Then you've got Braxton Barker as a walk-on quarterback, as your third-string quarterback, and then if Bryce gets hurt, he's your backup. It just gets really confusing at that point. So as much as fans would like to see Jalen Milroe get the ball in his hands, I don't necessarily know if that's the best for Alabama's long-term. Now, shoot, man, if we get another injury and, they got to go into the depth even more, maybe he's the guy that Alabama that Nick Saban was talking about. They're still looking for even more emergency options because 4 is really not enough when it comes to having a whole running back room. So it'll be interesting to see what they move forward. I kind of suggested with everyone wanting to see Ajay Hall, Ajay Hall is number 84. Cordell Patterson for the Atlanta Falcons is number 84. Both receivers. Yeah, maybe we could see Ajay Hall in the backfield. Maybe that's his role. Wouldn't that be something if he finally found his way into the offense at a different position? I'm just kidding about that, but there's a lot of talented players on Alabama's offense that they could probably turn to if they needed to. And right now we're talking about insurance options. So I don't think you sacrifice Jalen Milroe. He could be the future quarterback, in 2 years.
There's no telling, but this team is 9-1. They're the only team on odds right now that has a chance of beating Georgia besides Ohio State, according to the odds, right? Which we're going to talk about the odds here in a second as far as Heisman goes. But Alabama, Tony, to me, is going to have to be more creative moving forward with the offense in particular. I feel like the defense, they have their moments where they make mistakes, but they have a ferocious pass rush. Phil Mathis is getting to the quarterback. Will Anderson might be one of the greatest Alabama pass rushers of all time. I mean, we compare him to Derek Thomas, right? Jonathan Allen. I mean, he's as good as anyone. They have their lapses, but all in all, they've gotten better. I think a lot of people feel like, and I mean, I'm just going back off of what the comments were last night on the Sunday Night Call-In show, and I feel like that really is the vibe of Alabama fans right now. I mean, I went jogging in my neighborhood today, and my neighbor said the same thing to me. They're not happy with Bill O'Brien's creativeness. He gives you an option to be a little more creative.
Yeah, I mean, I think the creativity and then the offense in general, I think it's going to put a lot more weight on Bryce Young's shoulders to kind of carry it. We saw what he did when, LSU shut down the running game 2 weeks ago. And I think it's just going to come down to really him putting the team on his shoulders on offense and kind of carrying the load. And maybe they put more things in his hands to take some of the pressure off of Brian Robinson and Trey Sanders. Now, Nick Saban did say that they're not going to change their approach offensively, but I mean, you say that. I think that you still got to be a little bit guarded with how you treat Brian Robinson and Trey Sanders, who's coming off of an injury. So Brian Robinson, who had a brief injury earlier this year, and then Trey Sanders, who is dealing with multiple injuries over his career. I think you got to be kind of careful with them. So while Nick Saban says he's not going to change things, I'm not sure, if that's the best approach. And so I think you can't obviously alter your game plan in a way it's going to affect you on the field. And, you can't make yourself one-dimensional, but you've got a Heisman caliber quarterback. And I think it's time that, Alabama is really going to start leaning on him.
Yeah, look, and that kind of transitions into the next thing we're going to talk about, and that is Alabama's quarterback. But before we get there, guys, as you're hanging out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, like and subscribe, hit the bell. We really appreciate you being part of what we do here day in and day out. Nick Saban and Alabama press conferences daily. We got our different shows. We cover Alabama like no one else, and we appreciate you guys more than you know being part of our team. He's Tony Tsoukalas. He's the beat writer for Bama Insider. I'm Mick Gillispie, and again, thanks for being here on a Monday night. All right, Tony, you mentioned it. Now I'm throwing it up there. Bryce Young leading the pack right now, according to Vegas, for the Heisman. With that said, I don't want Alabama fans to get too comfortable because look, I love Bryce Young. You know that. I think that he is the difference right now for Alabama. I mean, without him, I think they lose probably 4 games before it's all said and done. I love him. And I think the guy's been amazing. But I don't think he's had his Heisman moment yet. And I think he has to have one of those games, and he has to have one of those moments to put himself, over the wall to win this thing. Your thoughts on the Heisman odds right now and the fact that Bryce is at the top of the field?
Yeah, I think he's going to, he's rightfully there. He's been doing it on a top team, and he's really, especially lately, I think his production has been great, especially since I wrote about it in today's Heisman Watch. His production has been great since the Texas A&M loss. He's really done well. He's basically perfect against New Mexico State. I know you can't really take too much because it is New Mexico State, but when you start this, the game off with 13 straight completions and you go 21 of 23 and you throw 5 touchdowns, it's 21 of 23, Mick, and he had a drop. So, I mean, it was almost a perfect day. We've seen him make plays with his feet when he needs to. I know he doesn't like doing that, but he can. He's capable of it. He's had some good games against, good defenses. And so I think when it comes down to his Heisman odds, it's going to come down to that Georgia game. So, take care of business, get Alabama, win the next 2 games, give Alabama a shot to win the SEC and also make the playoff. And if he can beat Georgia, and I think he can, provide a good offensive production in that game and lead Alabama to the playoffs and an SEC title, I think the Heisman's his. You can just write it on his name and give it to him. at the end of the game, because I think doing that against the number 1 team and against the Georgia defense that's been so dominant, that will just write his name on the Heisman. I will say though, after this week, I wouldn't be surprised if he falls behind a little bit in the standings. CJ Stroud is a hot name.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got Kenneth Walker, and those two are going to play each other. So that's a Heisman, pedestal kind of game. And one of those guys is probably going to have a great game against the other. And I think, either way it goes, if it's CJ Stroud or if it's Kenneth Walker, I think with Bryce Young playing an Arkansas defense that lets you, it doesn't give up big plays. It kind of lets you sit back and pick it apart. So the numbers might not be super eye popping for Bryce. I could see him having just an efficient game against Arkansas and one of those two guys going off in a high profile game. But I think that all balance out against Auburn and against Georgia. Bryce Young should have his moment to kind of reclaim that front runner status. If he does so, lose it this week. And it really, like I said, it boils down to that Georgia game, and all eyes are going to be on him. And it's going to be not only the biggest test, it'll be the biggest test for any player this year. So I think that's the Heisman championship game, if you will.
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a season where anyone really has emerged and taken this thing, by the horns. I mean, last year, Smitty made that catch against LSU, and from that point on, everyone was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of the guy. And it turned out to be his Heisman. Obviously, Alabama played LSU a couple of games ago. They play him the same time every year, right? So we kind of had an idea in early November that this guy had a really good chance to win. Bryce is at the head of the field, and he's been so good and consistent, but he hasn't had that one magical frame.
Yeah.
When you're doing play-by-play, they tell you, it's like, on TV, it's like all you're doing is just putting a caption under a frame, right? And that's kind of how the Heisman is too. Like you have that moment and everybody's like, yeah, that's the moment. And I don't feel like anyone's really gotten there yet.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say that last year, we had a ton of worthy Heisman candidates and really strong Heisman candidates, and then this year it's been, no offense to Bryce, who's had a great season. It's just like, he's been the best player right now. And he, there's been better seasons, better Heismans. It's just, right. It's not a very strong Heisman class. I mean, Bryce Young is in his first year as a starter, and so is CJ Stroud. And these are your two guys that are leading the Heisman, and both of them are probably going to be way better next year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they're both leading the Heisman, and it's just kind of it's been a weird year in college football. And to be honest with you, I don't think, you're talking about Alabama Heisman contenders. I think my vote would go to Will Anderson. I think when I watch Alabama games, he's the best player out there. He's just not getting it. I didn't mention him in the Heisman race because he's just not getting the odds, and I don't really think he'll get the votes. It's such an offensive award. But here's a guy with 67 tackles. 23 of those are for a loss. 23, and 12.5 sacks, and that's all through 10 games. I think that's crazy. I think when you watch Alabama football games, he's the best player on the field every time he steps on the field, and he can influence games just as much as Bryce Young can, because he can shut down opposing offenses, and whether it be stopping the run, whether it be getting into the backfield for sacks, just pressures. He's crazy. He's basically a pro athlete playing college ball, and Alabama's going to get him another season next year. But he'd be my Heisman vote. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to really have too much of a chance at it.
At least not this year. It's tough for defenders to win the Heisman, but it is funny to me because I agree with you. The best player on the team is Will Anderson, and Bryce Young's the guy who is, I'd say, clearly the second best player on the team, right? But, Bryce Young's the guy that's in the mix for the Heisman right now. And that's just the way it is. It's an offensive award for the most part. It's hard for a defender to get there. But I'll tell you what, it's been so much fun watching Will Anderson Jr. wreck the opposition each and every week. Just ask LSU. I was thinking about that game. It's like, oh, yeah, Tennessee. Ask them about it. It's like this guy.
Mississippi State had 4 sacks.
Mississippi State. Did you see what Mississippi State did Saturday at Auburn?
Yeah.
You know why?
Big comeback.
Because they didn't have a Will Anderson Jr. in the backfield the entire game, right? So, yeah, it's amazing how good the guy is. But both players, one on offense and one on defense, have been really difference makers for Alabama. Without them, Alabama would not be number 2 right now in the college football playoff rankings heading into this game against Arkansas, and with a win wrapping up the West. Okay, yeah, with a win wrapping up the West, Tony, that's what they have to do. They play Arkansas 2:30 Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium. With a win, they wrap up the West.
Simple as that. No other, if, ands, or buts about it. And they should beat Arkansas. And I think it's going to be it's good that it ended up this way for Alabama, because I think it allows a lot of these seniors and a lot of these people that came back for one final season at Alabama, allows them to do that in front of, their home crowd, instead of clinching the West in Auburn, in enemy territory. They'll be able to celebrate it a little bit more if they're able to win. Now, you can't count this as a win just yet. Arkansas is a good team. But if they're able to do it, I think that would be just kind of a nice moment for people like, Brian Robinson, a Tuscaloosa native who came back for his 5th season, to be able to clinch that West one more time at Alabama in your last game at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think that'll be a special moment. Of course, on the other hand, it will make the Iron Bowl a little bit less significant, and especially now that you don't have Bo Nix in the Iron Bowl. And I think that the Iron Bowl might be a little bit more boring than it would be if, the West was on the line and, Auburn could mess things up for Alabama. But I don't think Alabama fans are really upset about losing some of the drama heading to Jordan-Hare, because that doesn't always work out well for the Tide whenever there's those drama situations over there. So I think Alabama fans don't mind having a drama-free trip to Auburn at the end of the month.
Yeah, throw me in that mix. I mean, I try to act like I'm objective, and I am objective. Look, I try to be objective, but I'm a longtime Alabama guy. Do I want to see the team go down to Auburn and have a lot on the line? No. I mean, it makes it a lot easier for those guys to go down there and play in a very hostile environment when you've already wrapped up everything. Now, obviously, Alabama is still playing each and every game to get to the college football playoff, right? So it still matters. I mean, it's not like you can sit your starters or anything like that, but the pressure will be a lot less when hey, look, you know what? We have another game after this that's significant. And I think Alabama, and Tony, I want to know your opinion. I think they could lose to Arkansas or Auburn, but win one of those games and beat Georgia and still make the college football playoff with 2 losses. But they'd have to beat Georgia. Yeah.
If they beat Georgia and win the SEC, especially with the way that other things have happened around them, I expect them to make it even with 2 losses. Now, there's some people that think that they could win those 2 games against Auburn and Arkansas and then lose to Georgia and still make it. I think that's more of a stretch. Because at that point, what have they done? I think you'd probably need A&M, Ole Miss to win out pretty big. And even then, I think you'd have to have some people lose around you. I don't like Alabama's chances of having 2 losses and no conference championship, but I do like their chances of, if they were to lose one of those 2 games and beat Georgia, they're definitely in. I don't think there's any hesitation.
Guys, like and subscribe as you hang out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback, part of Bama Insider and the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're here every Monday night at 6 o'clock. He's Tony Tsoukalas. He's the beat writer for Bama Insider, and I'm Mick Gillispie. And again, we appreciate you guys being here as Alabama has 2 regular season games left. So we've been here. This is episode 13 of Monday Night Quarterback, if you can believe that. And if you can believe this, and let me throw it up there, former Alabama defensive coordinator and longtime Nick Saban assistant Kirby Smart is the Georgia head coach. And of all these guys that they talk about being former Nick Saban assistant coaches, this guy was actually a longtime assistant and partner of Nick Saban. He helped Alabama win a bunch of national championships as defensive coordinator. He's at Georgia. Alabama has foiled his dogs twice, Tony. Not once, but twice. When they were on the verge of winning a championship for the first time since 1980, when Herschel Walker, who, by the way, was one of my childhood favorites at running back, was the back for the Dogs, ran over everyone. They haven't won one since. This year, they are overwhelming favorites to win the national championship. And if Alabama plays them in Atlanta, which we think is going to happen, you say, and I see this, you said that Alabama is a 3-point underdog. Tony, I'm going to tell you that I think by the time the game comes, that could be as many as 9.
Oh, I don't know. I think, well, at that point, it depends on, how Alabama does in these next two games and how Georgia does. But I could see it hovering around three. The notable thing here, and this is from Circus Sports, has them as a Georgia has a 3-point favorite. This is the first time, if it holds up, or even in general, that Alabama will be a underdog heading into the matchup. Since actually, coincidentally, Georgia in 2015. We all know how
Wow.
that ended up for Alabama. That's back when everyone thought Alabama's dynasty was dead, and it was closely
Cooper.
after the Ole Miss game, and so Alabama went down to Athens and beat Georgia in the rain, and then went on to win a national
Oh,
championship.
yeah. I was at that one.
Yeah, but they were underdogs for that one, and they haven't been since. And it's kind of weird to see a betting line with Alabama not as the favorite. You just assume that Alabama is the favorite, and even in some of these close national title games, Alabama was always the favorite.
Yeah,
Even when
right.
they weren't the number one team. So it's just kind of funny how that worked out. But I think that Georgia should be the favorite. I think that Georgia is right now playing like the better team, and I think most
Yeah.
people, if they're honest, would pick Georgia. If you had to say which team has the better shot at winning. Now Georgia, like you mentioned, they find a way to get in their own way sometimes, and they make a lot of mistakes. And when it comes down to the crucial moments, they haven't been able to get it done. I think that's one of the things where Alabama has a chance to beat them there, because I don't think it's a case of I think sometimes you'll see these Alabama fans and they get this Chicken Little syndrome and they think that their team's terrible and the sky's falling, but Alabama's not going to lose by 30 points to Georgia. They're not going to lose by at most they're probably going to lose by 10 if they do get quote unquote blown out. I mean, it'll be a close game, I think, but the fact that you're sitting there and you're picking Georgia, it has a lot to say, because normally at this stage you're always picking Alabama, and the other team has a chance to upset them, but they're not heading into the game as the favorite. And I think that just speaks volumes to what Kirby Smart and Georgia have done, and with the program they've built. And just, it's really hard to repeat in college football too. So it's hard for Alabama to come off of such a great team and really put up the same kind of performances week in and week out, because last year's team was just so, it might have been, in my opinion, it's the best college football team of all time. We'll see if this Georgia team can compete with it. But yeah, Alabama, I think, has a definite shot of winning that game. I think it'll be a close game, but if you ask me right now, I think I'd pick Georgia too, by probably about 3. I mean, I think it's probably a fair line.
Yeah. Look, I think Georgia's going to be more than a 3-point favorite, and rightly so. I mean, the thing that as far as the betting odds go, the thing that keeps Alabama from being too much of an underdog against a team in Georgia that hasn't even had a contest since the first game of the season is their name, right? But when you look at it, I mean, despite the record, right, 9-1 and 10-0 or whatever, it's Georgia's absolutely dominated the competition. I mean, they haven't had a game 17 points or closer since the first week, right? I mean, they've been crushing everybody. But I just don't think Alabama's going to be intimidated by Georgia. And to me, and I guess this is the last thing we'll talk about on the show tonight, I think it comes down to the offensive line for Alabama against Georgia's defensive front. Alabama's going to have to stir that up.
Yeah, that or Bryce Young's just going to have an amazing performance, and they're just going to have to beat them through the air. But yeah, Georgia definitely has the type of defense that can really shut down Alabama's running game, and you saw LSU do that. Well, Georgia's got a better defense than LSU does, and so if that can happen against LSU, it can certainly happen against Georgia. And if they can make Alabama one-dimensional, it's going to make life really tough on Bryce Young. Now, the good thing about Bryce Young is he's kind of a magician back there, and he can make things happen. And so when things aren't going well, if you buy 10 seconds by scrambling around, well, it doesn't matter how good a defense is, somebody's going to get open, and he's the kind of guy that can hit them. So that's what makes him so dangerous, and that's what he can almost be like a defense buster. But to put that much pressure on a sophomore, first year starter, I know he'll have a ton of games under his belt by then, but it's a lot to ask. So yeah, you're right. The offensive line is going to have to kind of get the running game going. I think it's going to be a big game for Brian Robinson, and Alabama just can't be a pass only offense because it won't work. But on the flip side, I think Alabama's also got a good defense, and I don't think Georgia's offense is all that spectacular. And I think Alabama should be able to do pretty well against Georgia's offense. So that's why I think it's going to be close. But I just look at that Georgia team and how efficient they are. And you look at, a lot of the things with Alabama, it's the mentality thing. I think the talent's there. It's just, I don't know if this team is playing like a champion plays. And right now, when you look at Georgia, they're doing that. They're playing like a champion plays.
Right.
So that's why I picked them.
Hopefully they'll play in Atlanta. That'd be good news for Alabama with 2 games left to go. Arkansas 2:30 this Saturday. Auburn 2:30 next Saturday. Alabama wins one. They play Georgia for the SEC. They win both, and they're going into that football game for an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. And that's what Nick Saban's done. Look, Tony, a win this week gives him 10, at least 10. Since 2008, he's done that every single season. I'm talking about Nick Saban. All right, what do you have going on this week that we need to check out at BamaInsider.com? What are you covering right now?
Yeah, everything, right? Because we've got the football and basketball at the same time. So tomorrow night, we'll have both the college football rankings and we'll have a basketball game. We have another basketball game Friday. We have plenty of football in between. I told you I'm probably going to do a story on kind of a fun story on what Demoy Kennedy and Christian Leary have to offer as running backs, because I think, that's always kind of fun to look at. I don't know how much they're actually going to play, but it'll be nice to see kind of like what they do offer if it does come down to that. And I'm sure I'll have plenty of, plenty more stories too from, the player availabilities and Nick Saban on Wednesday as well.
Awesome. Well, Tony, I always love having you on Monday Night Quarterback. Love talking to everyone about college football. Let's do it again next Monday at 6 o'clock, and we'll be 1 week closer. Next week, we'll be talking all about the Iron Bowl.
Definitely. It'll be a big week. They're all big weeks now from now on out, huh?
No doubt about it. He's Tony Tsoukalas. I'm Mick Gillispie. Make sure you check out his work, Bama Insider and BamaInsider.com on the YouTube channel where you're hanging out right now. Tomorrow, we've got a lot of stuff going on. Andrew Bone, Trey Yannity will be on with a look at recruiting. Alabama right now with the number 2 recruiting class, according to rivals in the country. And then Kyle Henderson and myself will be on at 7 o'clock when the college football playoff rankings are released, expecting Georgia 1, Alabama 2. But who's behind them? We'll find out tomorrow night. We've got our score prediction show coming up on Wednesday with Trey and Kyle. I'll be back Friday night after that with the Bama Insider Tailgate Show from Innisfree in Tuscaloosa at 6 o'clock. And for those of you that are hanging out right now, I want to remind you guys, that's a radio show that we record on Sunday, on Friday that airs on Saturday. So you're kind of like behind the scenes of a radio show as we do that. And then Saturday after the game, we swing back here for the post-game show. And we do that from, well, at least this Saturday, we'll do it from the Skygate Club right there on top of Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Tony, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, definitely, man.
All right, that's Tony Tsoukalas. I'm Mick Gillispie. Like and subscribe the Bama Insider YouTube channel, and we will talk to you guys again real soon. Roll Tide, everybody.